I'm excited to talk about the brand new Anbernic RG34XX. Yes, Anbernic was kind enough to send me a review unit about a week before they launched this device. It's out now. It's available for about $70 on their website. You can order it in a variety of colors. And I've been playing with it nonstop for the past week. So I just want to talk about how this device fits into my life, how it might fit into your life, because this thing is pure nostalgia. So before we get into the specs and talk about the gameplay, I just want to say, I think one of the worst things you can do to a person is like question their intentions. Like, you intended to do this thing or that thing, right? How do you know? How are you get in someone's head and know that, right? And then it really upsets somebody. I always try to avoid that. But I think with Anbernic, it's clear. The intention of this device is to make almost a carbon copy of the original Game Boy Advance from the early 2000s, right? I mean, if you're 5 feet away from this thing, you cannot tell the difference between this and original Game Boy Advance. You cannot. And I think that is the intention of Anbernic, is to make a perfect Game Boy Advanced experience for the retro gamer, pure nostalgia play, or if you're just getting into this for the very first time and you want to kind of experience that. Now, hand to the heavens, I never owned an original Game Boy Advance. I know, can you believe that? That whole era for me, I just totally missed it. That's why I've been lately obsessed with going back and collecting old Game Boy Advance cartridges. You saw the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. That was my main focus, is picking up Game Boy Advance cartridges and complete inbox games, because I want to experience that. And that was an era that I just totally missed. So for me, that I can play Game Boy Advance games, almost the entire library on one device like this, and get that original experience with a beautiful new screen and performance and Wi-Fi and all of those things, yes. Yes, sign me up. All right, let's dive into some of the specs of this device. First, let's start with the screen, the 3.4-inch display. It's got a resolution of 720 by 480, which, by the way, is 3 times the resolution of the original Game Boy Advance, 3x. So imagine playing your games for the first time in 20 years. You haven't seen them, you're not used to what they look like these days, and you're going to be blown away at just how vibrant and gorgeous some of these original Game Boy Advance games look on this device. The RG34XX is slightly heavier than the original Game Boy Advance, but it's still compact and easy to carry around. For instance, this weekend I was carrying around in my pocket the entire time I was at my kids' swim meet, all weekend long. And I didn't even realize it was in my pocket from time to time. Often it just felt like it was my wallet. I mean, it was that unobtrusive in my pocket, and that was a great thing. As far as the chipset goes in here, it's going to be the same old tune. Anbernic has been releasing the same chipset in all of these devices. It's the all-winner H700, something we've seen in a lot of these other devices over the past few months. In terms of design, the RG34XX channels the original Game Boy Advance's aesthetic, especially with the translucent red version that I've been using. It has a really nostalgic early 2000s feeling to it. No, I did not get the indigo version. I chose to get this red version because I've got, I don't know, I feel like I wanted something vibrant this time. The buttons and the D-pad feel responsive and solid, playing a lot of different platformers and RPGs and action games. And while the ergonomics might not be as refined as some of the modern handhelds, I was able to play comfortably for hours. And let me say something about the ergonomics of this device. There's not a lot of extra grippiness area for your hands, and I think we've gotten spoiled, with a lot of the extra hand spots on a lot of modern handhelds. This does not have that. Again, this is early 2000s, and if that bothers you, then you might not want to pick this up. But again, for me, playing hours at a time, pulling it in and out of my pocket, I didn't have a problem with it. I'm not sitting there getting like carpal tunnel syndrome or something like the monkey's paw playing it. But again, you might, if you're used to like playing the Steam Deck, or you're used to playing I don't know, on a GameSir controller, or you love your PlayStation 5 DualSense controllers, like this might seem like otherworldly, but again, nostalgia, right? Before we talk about the gameplay, which is why you're here, right? How does it play GBA games? I want to talk about the resolution, the screen resolution in darkness and outside. So again, I was at this tournament all weekend, this swim meet all weekend, playing it in the cafeteria while in between heats and in its kind of darkened environment. Just perfect. Perfect indoors, no complaints at all. Playing it on any kind of public transportation, if you sit next to a really bright window, you might have a problem, but in a subway, in a bus, and an airplane, you're going to be absolutely fine. Again, unless it's like the sun is reflecting right off the screen. So then I went outside, and you can see here in pure sunlight what this looks like, the reflections here. You're not going to be playing this in bright sunlight. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Now, maybe you can take it to the park, and you can sit under a tree, and you're in a shaded area. Then, then you're going to be fine. But I find the same thing is true if I have my Nintendo Switch outside. It's going to be the same experience, really. I mean, in bright sunlight, no, you need to find a shaded area to really enjoy your game. Otherwise, you're going to be squinting the whole time. I've definitely tried to play my Nintendo Switch like in the passenger side of my car as we're driving on a sunny, summer afternoon. And I'm like, why am I even doing this? It's giving me a headache, so I just shut it off. Let's talk about the design. They absolutely nailed it. This thing is gorgeous. And it has, of course, a few modern upgrades, which we'll talk about in a second. But first of all, take a look at the D-pad here. Start and select on this side. It's got a mono speaker to the right side. And it's got the A and B buttons. Plus, if you've got like the red version I have here, you can see the Y and X, but it's kind of hard to see those letters on here. This power button at the top, which is kind of great. The power button, it's just an indicator. It's not actually the power button. The power button is actually on the bottom of the device. And also there's a headphone jack and a volume up and down. But the modern touches are on top, of course, where we have that menu button, HDMI out, and USB-C charging. Plus, it's got 2 card slots on the top, 2 SD card slots. It comes with the stock operating system in card slot number 1. And that's really all I need. I don't even need to add another SD card to the second slot because I'm not going to be putting anything else on here besides Game Boy Advance games. So I went through my entire Game Boy Advance library and picked out like 30 or 40 of my favorite GBA games that I want to play and have on this device, dedicated to this device. Put them right in the ROM file on that little SD card using my MacBook Air. Dropped them right in, boom, done. And then I just rebooted the Anbernic device. You have to reboot it. Then it'll notice the game files in the stock OS. Let's talk about the gameplay, which is why you're here, to play the games. What is that experience like in launching these games? So it does come with a stock operating system. And so far, there's no custom operating system. You can't put on MuOS or Newly or Emulation Station or anything like that to make it fancier and look nicer. But the stock operating system is pretty good. And once you put your ROM files into those folders on the SD card that it comes with and reboot the device, it recognizes them immediately and you're off to playing these games. And then launching those games for the first time, they look absolutely gorgeous on this device. Why would you buy this device? You would buy this device to play Game Boy Advance games with a 3x resolution and a performance experience that you didn't get in the early 2000s, and that's exactly what you get here. They hit an absolute home run with these games, playing through Crash Bandicoot or Astro Boy or Contra Advanced, you name it. Sitting down and playing long RPGs, by the way. You might find that this D-pad is a little smaller than you'd like and maybe less responsive than some of the better D-pads that are out there, but for playing all the platformers that I got my hands on, I didn't have a problem at all. A Game Boy Advance game specifically, like Contra Advanced, had no trouble at all playing Contra Advance. Again, that's a Game Boy Advance game. Playing through, Astro Boy or, other RPGs, you're going to have a blast navigating this handheld with those RPGs. I have to say, the Game Boy Advance has a lot of great RPGs on here, not just like baby RPGs either, like real lengthy RPGs from Golden Sun to a lot of great Fire Emblem games, right? So this is going to be a device that you can throw in your pocket and just kind of make your way through a lot of those classic RPGs that you never got your chance to play before. And then of course this device has all the modern bells and whistles that you might expect from a modern handheld, right? Save states. So all those games where you got through all these, like a long level and then you could never save the game, now you can with RetroArch. So here's what I would recommend is configuring some basic settings in RetroArch, which is the emulation backend on this device. And I would recommend you go in here and make all of the different changes that you want that make you happy, right? You can do different overlays if you like. You can change save states, turn save states on or off. What I like to do is when I'm playing a game, have the save state upon closing. So if I exit out of the game, save state. And then when I relaunch that game, if I haven't played it in a few weeks, I want it to load from my save state. One thing I will say though, inside of RetroArch, you need to make sure you do this. I've done this a bunch of times where I've made all these changes and then I just exit out of RetroArch. Don't do that. Go into the configuration setting here in the menu and go down to save configuration, okay? And then save that. Make sure that's turned on so that when you exit RetroArch, it will save all of the little tweaks that you made while you were in the back end of the settings. All right, we've come full circle, and I think the intention of this device by Anbernic was in fact to create a device that is like a picture-perfect clone of the original Game Boy Advance, and that's how I'm treating this device. Does it score a single, a double, a triple, or a home run? I think this is a grand slam, because all of those Game Boy Advance games now at 3x resolution with save states in this original style nostalgic form factor just hits at all the right buttons for me. Do I have a few little nitpicks? Yeah, sure. Yeah, but you know, that's life, right? Nothing's ever going to be 100% perfect. But for what they set out to do here and the price point of $70, and if you have a hankering to play some original Game Boy Advance games and get that sort of original form factor experience, because I've looked at mods, you know, I've looked at buying some of those mods on eBay and Etsy, and people will mod Game Boy Advances and PSPs and all of that kind of stuff and put in new batteries and allow you to do USB-C charging and all of that. But every one of them that I've looked at, I've just never been happy with it, to be honest with you. And so either you're going to play an FPGA system, you're going to pick up like an analog pocket and put an EverDrive cartridge in there like I have. I love doing that, don't get me wrong. Or do you want this experience, the original sort of Game Boy Advance look and feel and design, and load it up with your favorite games at 3x resolution? Again, I think it's a home run at this price point, $70. So, and by the way, if you buy it and you don't like it, guess what? Throw it up on eBay and someone will buy it and snap it up, especially if you loaded up some ROMs on it. That'll make some people happy, and then you won't be out any money after the day, right? So guys, let me know. Are you going to pick up one of these devices? Does it hit you in the nostalgia feels? You know, it does for me as a person who never owned one of these, and I would play my friend's original Game Boy Advance from time to time. So to never having owned one, to be able to have this 3x experience, that's where it hits for me. But let me know down below, how does it hit for you? And thanks so much for subscribing and being a part of our community here. And we'll see you next time, everyone.